Now, I am sure after reading that title, a ton of you guys are scratching your head wondering, Mike, what on earth are you thinking? But I can explain. I've got answers for that and for a bunch of other questions for this year's Q&A. I asked Instagram and Discord for the best of your best, so here goes. Well, as most of you guys know at this point, we finished the Ferrari up for SEMA last year in November. And as a result, it sat in CSF Radiator's booth on display as one of the most prominent and successful cars of the show. With that, though, comes a lot of attention, including from a handful of people who did ask if I would sell it. Now, this happens every year at SEMA, no matter what project you take, and normally these people aren't very serious. But the weekend after SEMA, at a friend's event, another person asked if the car was for sale. In an attempt to be polite, I said, well, everything has a price. And of course his response was, well, what's this car's? And as an off-the-cuff number in an attempt to make him go away more than to actually entertain a sale, I said $400,000. And surprisingly, he said, awesome, come talk to me as soon as you're finished parking. Now clearly, and maybe foolishly, it wasn't something I actually entertained, and I'm sure most of the reasons for that are pretty obvious. This was right after I had put the car together for the first time, and well before we had ever even gotten to turn the wheel in anger. Getting the car out to the racetrack for testing and eventual competition has been something we've been working towards diligently for years, and this was not something I wanted to just cut short. For both my sake and for you guys, there's no way I could live with myself after 2 years of build episodes just to show up and say, hey, after all of that, I sold it. I think you guys would probably hang me, and if not, you'd certainly never watch my videos again. And who knows, maybe there's going to be a day in the future where I really regret not taking that mountain of money, because I don't care who you are, that's life-changing. But I also know a lot of you will understand that sometimes something you put a bunch of blood, sweat, and tears into is worth more than a giant sum of money. I'm really proud of this car, and I don't want it to go anywhere anytime soon. I will take a little bit of pride, though, throwing it in the face of all the people who said I destroyed the value of my car by doing what I've done to it, that, for a brief moment, I might have had the most valuable 308 on Earth. Now, I get asked this question a lot. It's one of the most popular questions in the comments, and it's one I'm still a little bit hesitant to answer because money's kind of a weird topic, and what I don't want is to make anybody think that just because you can't afford a project like the Ferrari, it doesn't mean you can't afford to build something special, because you can. You don't have to have deep pockets to make something creative or special to you. But with that said, probably the easiest way to answer this one without being totally direct is that other guy's number, if he took this project idea to a shop and said, hey, this is what I want you to build, and outlined the exact car I have, given you'd have to pay for labor, it's probably a pretty fair number. Following my recent build time-lapse, this is easily the most popular question I've been asked in the last month or so. And honestly, I get it. On the surface, it probably seems completely ridiculous to take what appears to be a mint-condition car and completely rip it apart to make a race car. Why not use something like a salvage title, or one that's been in an accident, one that's got rust, or maybe one with a blown engine? And trust me, I tried my best to find one of those, but what I settled on was the single cheapest Ferrari 308 coupe I could get my hands on. The reality is, as a classic Ferrari, it's hard to find these cars in dilapidated condition. They're just not really out there. Most of these things are kept in garages and kept in pristine shape, so it's not as easy as just finding one that needs work. And to that end, for everybody that says it's still sacrilegious to cut one of these classics up like I've done, all I can say is this. Remember that most of these cars are already in showroom condition. They're preserved in plastic bubbles and kept in garages as showpieces because it's a vintage Ferrari. There's no shortage of pristine examples. I don't think the world of 308s lost anything meaningful, and, on the other hand, by selling off a lot of parts, I helped put more 308s back on the road. It's important to remember that most of this car is hand-built. So obviously we're not going to be taking things like extra control arms, given that there's 8 of them and they're all different. Instead, we'll be taking things like heim joints and ball joints to replace on these control arms if we begin to have an issue. To put it simply though, this is largely an exercise in faith that we built a solid car that can go a weekend without any major problems. We're not a full-fledged race team, and we don't have the funding to take everything under the sun. We're not taking any spare motors or gearboxes, and we'll only have one set of wheels. Instead, we're focusing on things that could keep the car from running, something that could cut our day short like our first track day. So we'll have lots of things like O-rings and gaskets, HD clamps, and even spare axles. And with a little bit of luck, the car will make it through the entire weekend. Now this one comes from the StanceWorks Discord, so if you aren't part of the community, there is a link in the description. Come join us. We are always talking shop. But if I had to give 5 tips for anybody that wants to tackle their first big build, here they are. First and foremost, have a plan, have a vision, know where you're trying to go with this build before you even get started. If you don't have guidance, you're not going to get to the finish line. Second, take whatever you think it's going to cost and double it, because I promise you're going to be wrong. You're going to need more than you planned on. Third, have a plan for how you're going to stay motivated when you lose steam or when stuff doesn't go your way, because that's going to be the hardest part of the project, I guarantee you. Fourth, don't be afraid to ask other people for help when you don't know how to do something or when to do something or anything of the sort. There's nothing wrong with learning from other people. And last but not least, probably the most important one, don't be afraid to fail. Failure is when you learn the most, and the best projects come through a lot of failures. I promise you that. Don't be afraid to do something wrong. This one is a two-part answer. On one hand, I'm most worried about the suspension failing in some capacity, only because I built every bit of it, and I'm not a professional. There's a chance I made a mistake and miscalculated something. And if the suspension fails, that could send the car careening into a wall, and I'm not really ready to write it off yet. But I do think we built a pretty solid car, and I don't think that's a realistic fear. What I think is more likely to happen, and what's probably smarter to worry about, is that a failure occurs that keeps the car from running in the main event. After putting all this time, money, and effort into getting this car to the other side of the world, I'd just be heartbroken if we came up short. To be clear, I have no expectation of being remotely competitive at this event, but I'd be bummed if we didn't even get to compete at all. If you've been watching this channel for any amount of time at all, there's no chance that this answer will surprise you. But to put it simply, I live to build cars. Doing this is a creative process for me, and I enjoy it beginning to end. Now, don't get me wrong, I want to be abundantly clear, I love to drive too. That is part of what we've been working towards for years on end. That's what we're here to do with the Ferrari. But the path to get there is what I really enjoy most, and if I had to pick between the two, there's no question. I would pick building every single time. And if I were going to wax poetic about it, I'd say that there's something just unparalleled about the process of taking an idea to completion. Whether it's something as simple as a tab or a bracket, all the way up to a full fleshed out car, there's nothing that beats seeing something through to the finish line, especially when you care immensely about it, and doubly so when it represents the creative process for you, not just a means to an end. That sense of satisfaction that comes from building a part that fits just right or does exactly what it's supposed to, or maybe laying your best weld yet, those sensations can't be beat. I don't know if there's anything that tops the feeling of solving a problem that feels insurmountable in a project. A number of you guys have asked where the diffuser for the back of the Ferrari has been in the latest videos. And this is a multifaceted answer. For starters, we're trying to compete in the open class for World Time Attack Challenge, and as a result, we are not allowed to run a flat bottom floor on the car. But without a flat bottom floor, our rear diffuser doesn't function properly, and instead, if we were to run it, it would get ripped clean off of the car. So instead, we're just going to keep things simple, and while we're in Australia, we're going to run the car with no rear diffuser. Now, as you guys know, the car is officially in Australia. When you guys watch this, we are leaving town tonight to fly there and race it on the other side of the world, and I'm really excited about it, and presumably the car will come back in one piece. And with that said, what are we going to do next? Well, there's a lot of driving here stateside to do, but if the opportunity ever arose, the Nurburgring is definitely a bucket list item. So if any sponsors are out there listening and that sounds like a cool project that you want to help throw down on and make happen, let's send this thing to Germany and do some really cool shit with it. Now, I want to be clear that I am nowhere close to pulling this off because I spent all of my money getting the Ferrari ready for Australia, but eventually, someday, I would love to buy my own CNC mill. There are some really affordable options like the Langmuir MR1 that's only about $7,000 or $8,000 all in, and they seem immensely capable for their price. I've got the CAD design for this stuff down, and most of the software will handle the G-code, so there's just a bit of a learning process I'd have to learn in order to utilize this stuff, but I know that this would take my builds to the next level, no question about it. And with a bit more money to bring to the table, I could even upgrade to something like a Tormach, which I see a lot of on Shane's Stuff Made Here channel, and if you don't watch it, you should go check it out. Now, just like the last question, I'll also take the sheepish opportunity to say if there are any companies out there that make a machine like these and you want to see it here on the StanceWorks channel and want to make some really cool car parts together, reach out to me because I promise I will take such good care of this machine. I'll give it a good home, I'll keep it inside, I'll feed it, I'll bathe it, I'll give it a name. It'll be my new best friend and we'll make some magic happen. Now, I'm saving this one for last because clearly if you made it to the end of the episode, you're probably the only people that care about this kind of thing, but I've had a lot of people ask if you can come say hi at World Time Attack, if we're going to be signing things, and if there's going to be merch. And the answer to everything, of course, is yes. Now, I won't be selling any StanceWorks merch personally. That involves a bunch of custom stuff that I don't even know how to deal with. But there will be 308 StanceWorks merch through both Haltech and through World Time Attack themselves, so don't miss it. We will be signing stuff, and of course, I want you guys to come say hi. Come let us know where you came from. Let us know what you think of the car. Come introduce yourselves. The only thing I ask is if we are busy working on the car or trying to get ready for a session, give us a little bit of time, give us a little bit of patience. We are there on the other side of the world to compete, and I've got a crew with me that is dedicated to making this happen. So if we're busy, come back a little bit later. I would love to meet each and every one of you guys because we're there because of you. And with that said, that is the end of the episode. I hope you guys have liked the Q&A. I don't know. These are always hit or miss. The last one was huge, so hopefully this one is too. And I will catch you guys either while we're in Australia or when we get back. Don't forget, hit the StanceWorks Discord and Patreon if you want to show some support, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.